BNA, Brand New Animal, is an original anime from Studio Trigger, the minds behind Kill la Kill, Little Witch Academia, and Premiere, which poses a question: what if Furry City, but not Zootopia, but also not Beastars? The hirsute heroine of this fluffy tale is Michiru, an ordinary teenage girl who one day wakes up as an anthropomorphic raccoon. Tanuki? Same difference. Luckily for her, in the reality of BNA, these animal-human hybrids aren't so uncommon, as these so-called beastmen evolved from various animal species along the same lines that humans evolved from primates. Unluckily for her, humans are incredibly prejudiced against these beastmen, which has driven them to the edges of society under threats of violence and death. Reminds me of the good old Yiffin Hell days. This has resulted in the foundation of New Anima, a city exclusively for beastmen, where Michiru hopes to find a new home, and maybe even some answers about her transformation and the disappearance of her best friend. Visually, BNA is a treat. Trigger always have an eye for creating these appealing aesthetics, and this show is no different. The animation has this energetic, cartoony bounce, and the character designs just emanate tons of personality. Colour plays a strong role in the style of this show, with some of my favourite shots highlighting neon pinks and blues that combine with the art style to give the show like a subtle retro vibe without making any overt references. Brand New Animal looks great, but narratively that's where things get a bit creakier, and this is where we'll be heading into spoiler territory. The premise of the story and the divisions between humans and beastmen brings up pretty clear parallels of oppression and subjugation. The beastmen are a marginalised community who seem to be attacked based purely off of their physical appearances, which leans into themes of racism, but then it's revealed that beastmen can conveniently transform their looks to appear human and blend into the dominant society at will, which sort of muddies the waters a little bit with that allegory. For a moment I thought maybe they were doing like a statement on sexuality where the beastmen have to hide who they really are to blend in with the public, but honestly I think that the changing from beast mode to human mode is just done so that there was some cool transformation sequences during the fight scenes, which, okay, fine, maybe in that case it's best that they don't really lean that hard into the social commentary, because as cathartic as it is to see some of the, the prejudiced humans getting their comeuppance, it isn't really explored that much outside of some of the first episodes and the Prime Minister kind of being a dick to beastmen throughout the series. When Michiru arrives in New Anima, she quickly runs into Shiro Ogami, a literal lone wolf vigilante working to protect the citizens of New Anima from various crimes, gangs and conspiracies. She also learns about Silverwolf, a mythical figure worshipped by many in the city as the immortal guardian of all beast kind. But is Silverwolf even real? And if he is, who could he be? Certainly not the crime-fighting do-gooder who always arrives to save the day in the nick of time, with apparent invincibility and omniscient sensory perception. There's literally a scene where he sniffs Michiru's student ID card and can somehow tell that she was in a basketball tournament being cheered on by her missing friend. Whatever. Whose surname means wolf but is spelt as great spirit in kanji. Whose beast form is a grey, some may say, silver wolf. No, couldn't possibly be him. Anyway, Michiru moves in with Shiro at the social co-op for new residents, and the show settles into its rhythm. Michiru gets into a wacky situation, Shiro bails her out, big action scene, roll credits. It's fun for a couple of episodes, and the content isn't bad, but 5 episodes in and it begins to feel just a little bit formulaic and kind of frustrating when there are, lingering plot lines being alluded to, such as Michiru's powers and her abilities, the shady pharmaceutical company, Michiru's friend's disappearance and all the mystery around that. But the show doesn't really seem interested in kicking any of these plot lines into gear, and is more interested in showing off New Anima as a location. And I get it, I'm a world building guy, I can understand why that might potentially work, but The problem is that New Anima is kind of a boring place. The comparisons between BNA with Zootopia and Beastars are obvious, but next to Zootopia, New Anima doesn't feel anywhere near as interesting or as exciting. The parts of the city don't feel like they've got any sort of unique identity to them. The only part of town that does feel a little bit different are the slums, where the bears live, because bears are stupid and poor. If there is a joke there, I don't think I got it. And yes, while Beastars also features a fairly bland city filled with furry folk, the world building allows the story to carry that carnivore-herbivore tension wherever it goes. So while Beastars' locations are fairly mundane, the threat of violence is baked into its undercurrent in exactly the sort of way that BNA doesn't have, by keeping its humans and its beastmen separate. Luckily, around episode 6 or 7, BNA starts to let its plot lines have a bit more impact, which gives a boost to its story and its characters. We learn more about Michiru and what happened to her friend Nazuna, and how the events since their separation have affected their relationship. Michiru and Nazuna always supported each other's dreams, with Michiru wanting to become a basketballer and Nazuna wanting to become a pop star. And since their beastification, Nazuna has found a way to fulfill that desire, by impersonating the mythical Silverwolf character and becoming a figurehead to a creepy religious sect? Personally, I would argue that becoming a pop star and a cultist prophet are two drastically divergent career paths, but apparently to Nazuna, they're one and the same. This change in their circumstances and Michiru's insistence on getting things back the way they were rubs Nazuna the wrong way, and despite the importance that Michiru placed on finding her, it becomes quickly clear that they are no longer on the best of terms. It's maybe a little bit forced, but it adds a level of intrigue and grit to their relationship and makes Michiru a more interesting character, which is more than I can say for Shiro, who remains exactly what you would expect of a character who is defined by being a lone wolf. We also learn more about the medical centre and its role in transforming Michiru and Nazuna, and how Alan Sylvester, its CEO, is manipulating New Anima's citizens so that they will eventually go berserk and destroy the city. This guy is supposed to be human, and yet he exudes such intense levels of rat energy. Slight aside on the medical centre, the show's dialogue makes regular references to the Beastmen's genetic code. And this isn't a criticism of the show itself, but rather the Netflix English subtitles, which seem to be insistent on spelling out beast deoxyribonucleic acid every time it gets mentioned, which is a lot. It makes you think that perhaps they could have come up with a clever acronym for that. Like, I don't know, BNA! The show does pick up somewhat in the second half, but it never shakes off its main problem, and that's that the writing simply lacks flair. Important revelations are presented to the audience so flatly that you never really get a sense that you're living in the moment with these characters, feeling their joy, sadness, excitement, or their disbelief. The experience of watching the show feels more like you're in a meeting with the writing staff going over their notes for every episode. There's plenty of twists and turns throughout, but they never really have the desired impact, so your reaction to everything is pretty much just, yeah, sure, okay, alright, yeah. Probably perfectly fine as an episode brief, but it's not quite a story, is it? Even things like Michiru's first time transforming back into a human, which you would think would call for a major moment in the story, given that her transformation into a beastman is the main motivator behind the entire plot, just sort of gets thrown away in the series' most throwaway episode. Michiru just gets transformed back into a human because it's a requirement of this standalone episode without looking at the bigger picture and the impact that has on the series as a whole. I mean, the writing in all of that dolphin episode is pretty questionable. They sneak out of New Anima to attend a human party, but when the humans discover that one of them is a dolphin, they throw her in a fish tank where she nearly drowns. Not because this was all some comically evil plan to get a pet dolphin, even though, that would fit in with the tone, but because they're trying to help, despite the fact that it is blatantly unhelpful. And when faced with that, they just stand around blankly and watch her drown instead of, you know, I don't know, doing something. Why did they even have a dolphin-sized fish tank? As BNA reaches its finale, it becomes this sludge of bonkers rule of cool indulgence, which I'm fine with, and expository nonsense which is far too prosaic and late in the day for anyone to realistically be expected to give a shit about, which I'm less fine with. As the citizens of New Anima are on the verge of going apeshit, Alan's plan to push them over the edge by having Nazna reveal that she'd been falsely impersonating their deity makes no sense. Well, actually no, it makes complete sense, but his plan to mask his true intentions by telling Nazna that will calm everyone down instead of, like, obviously pissing them off doesn't. Nazna and Michiru just seem to go along with it, despite the fact that it is blatantly stupid and doesn't hold up under the slightest little bit of scrutiny. I mean, I guess it doesn't really matter, because once Nazna and Michiru discover that Alan's blatant lie is a blatant lie, Nazuna's deception gets broadcast anyway, and shock, everyone goes apeshit. Why is Plan B always better than Plan A? Alan, it turns out, is a Cerberus because bloodlines, and he and Shiro have a final battle, while Michiru tries to calm down the townsfolk with the combination of a serum and a recording of the real Silverwolf's cry. Spoilers! Silverwolf was Shiro the whole time. They save the city and then the show just ends. And this is a thing about the story developments not really feeling like they have the proper weight. There's no denouement beyond the characters just telling us the lessons they learned. BNA races through its plotline so quickly that once it reaches the end, there's not really anything to reflect on, and the show feels uninterested in itself and anxious to wrap everything up. BNA is not a bad show, but it has some aggressively mediocre writing being carried by beautiful animation and design. Its characters are fun but not interesting, its setting is functional but not inspiring, and its story is followable without being engaging. It's not a show to be avoided. By all means, if you like the look of it, give it a go, but with a variety of stuff that's out there, chances are that BNA doesn't really have all that much for you. Unless you are a massive furry. Thanks for watching. BNA is a bit of a mixed bag. It's not without charm, but it's too much of a mess for me to really get behind it. But it does have its fans, and by now obviously you've seen this video, so if you agree or if you disagree, I've been made aware that there are some buttons underneath the video so you can let me know what you think. So by all means, click away, and until next time, thanks.